Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. Terry, it has been roasting hot here. It's been in the high 70s. Yesterday was unbelievably hot. But there's good news.
What's that?
An Arctic freeze is coming our way by the 10th of December, according to one forecaster. Have you got your fur coat? Did you put them?
Just say your idea of good news and my idea of good news are not synonymous.
You do dream of a white Christmas, don't you?
Well, yeah, I can dream about it. It doesn't mean I want to walk through it.
Hey, you know, the guy that wrote I'm Dreaming of a White Christmas, you know where he was?
Probably Palm Springs.
That's right. He was in,
right?
he was in L.A. I mean, he'd never been to anything with snow. He was in L.A. He was dreaming of a white.
The Hallmark
yeah,
Channel.
Well, he writes pretty music. Anyhow, that's what they say. By the 10th of December, an Arctic freeze is coming, and some temperatures up in the Alaska will be minus 50. It's going to be cold. But we'll see. We'll see if these forecasters are right. But I think a little cold air wouldn't hurt us.
No, well, I mean, I actually find it refreshing, and it kills the bugs, and I'm good with that.
Okay, well, get ready to freeze. Well, okay. Well, President-elect Donald Trump is saying thank you to the voters of America. He's reaching out today to Ohio and Indiana, where he worked out a deal to keep jobs at a carrier plant. It's part of his plan to make the American economy great again.
Well, Trump's team is talking about their vision to rebuild the economy, including cutting taxes and government regulations. Mark Martin has the story.
President-elect Donald Trump has made it clear he wants to add jobs and boost the economy. Giving the country a financial facelift is a key goal of Trump, and he's on his way. He worked out a deal to keep close to 1,000 jobs in Indianapolis at this carrier factory. Company leaders first announced plans to move work to Mexico.
Is to move production from our facility in Indianapolis to Monterrey, Mexico.
The details of the president-elect's deal are unclear, but workers are ecstatic.
This is a victory for us little people.
Trump's picks for key economic positions also reflect his plans to get the economy growing again. His choice for Treasury Secretary, former Goldman Sachs executive Steven Mnuchin, says that will be job one.
And our number one priority is going to be the economy, get back to 3 to 4% growth. We believe that's very sustainable, and focus on things for the American worker. That's absolutely our priority.
Mnuchin says the Trump administration's tax plan will help bring the economy back.
Lowering corporate taxes so we make U.S. companies the most competitive in the world, making sure we repatriate trillions of dollars back to the United States, and the personal income taxes, where we're going to have the most significant middle income tax cut since Reagan.
For Secretary of Commerce, Trump tapped billionaire investor Wilbur Ross, a man known as the king of bankruptcy, for buying downtrodden companies that have the potential to produce big profits. Politico reports that Democrats are expected to give Mnuchin a tough time during his confirmation hearing over his actions during the mortgage financial crisis and his Wall Street resume, saying that it shows that Trump ran for president as a champion of blue-collar America, but he'll act as a Wall Street plutocrat after he becomes president. Will that be enough to keep Mnuchin on the sidelines? Probably not. Politico says it's likely he still will be confirmed. Mark Martin, CBN News.
Well, they did the nuclear option under the Democrats, and so the new rules of the Senate are you need a simple majority to confirm a cabinet appointee, and if the Republicans don't stand with Trump, there's something the matter. Of course, there's some very vulnerable Democrats up there, by the way, and they don't dare oppose the president because a couple of years from now, they're going to be up for election, and Mr. Trump is very popular in their state. Well, Stephen Orr is with us right now. He's an economist with FreedomWorks, and he's an advisor to the Trump campaign. Good to have you back with us, sir. Thank you.
Hi, Pat. I heard you talking about an Arctic freeze coming. You know, I'd love to see an Arctic budget freeze in Washington and freeze some of the spending so we can get this budget under control.
That's the least they can do. Hey, look, how's it going to work? You know, the idea is to hit them fast with a whole program. I mean, is it going to be like, here is a plan for cutting a few rates, or is it going to be a comprehensive tax overhaul? We couldn't put that through that fast, could we?
You know, I think it's going to be like Secretariat just bursting out of the starting gate. I think this is a president who wants to get this done and wants to get it done really quickly, Pat. You know, you've known me for a long time. I've been working on tax reform for 20, 25 years. I think the moment has arrived. We think that we could get something through the House maybe in a month or so, because Paul Ryan and others have been working on a plan that's very similar to the one that I helped put together for Donald Trump. And then we move to the Senate, and you're right, the Senate has tended to be the graveyard of legislation. But this could, and I just want to make one point. You know, you were talking about maybe using the process which only requires 51 votes in the Senate, called reconciliation. I would submit to you, Pat, that because we're talking about a jobs bill here that will really help the Midwestern states and so much of the country recover the jobs that have been lost, I actually think you could get a tax bill, maybe with some infrastructure spending, that could pass with 70, 75 votes in the Senate. I mean, it's been a long time since we've seen that kind of bipartisanship. But, you know, Donald Trump is on a roll right now.
All right, well, let's talk about the tax bill. You're going to cut the corporate rate down to 15%. It'll be the lowest in the world, maybe. And
well, Ireland will still have a lower rate, but we'll be the second lowest. And by the way, we're now the highest in the world, so that's going to make a big difference.
Well, and then we repatriate. There's at least, what, $3 trillion in money that's overseas that gets brought back. And what do you do? Give them a tax holiday if they invest in the Midwest, or what's the plan? Or a 10% tax on it, or what?
So we don't know exactly how much there is overseas, but some people say $2 trillion, and I've heard other people say $3 trillion. We're not going to know until we actually put the tax in place. But the way it works is we're telling these companies, look, you bring that money that you've got in China or Mexico or the Bahamas and bring it back to the United States and reinvest it here or pay it out in dividends to your shareholders, and we will charge you just a one-time 10% tax. Now think about this. Pat, this is the ultimate win-win, because the United States gets the jobs, and the shareholders get, you know, more money in their pockets, and then the federal Treasury could raise $200 billion that we could use for other purposes or retire the debt. I've never understood the argument against it.
All right, well, look, you know, the Democrats want that jobs bill. The last time they had that infrastructure thing, it was nothing but a boondoggle. Yeah. They used the money, it was almost $750 billion, and they used it to favor Democrat parties, and it went nowhere. What's going to be different this time?
Well, that's a great question. By the way, you know, where are all those shovel-ready jobs that Barack Obama promised 8 years ago? So we don't want to duplicate that failure. I think, by the way, some of this infrastructure that Donald Trump is talking about could be privately financed. For example, I've made the case that if we do the energy, you know, production that could be done in this country with respect to oil, gas, and coal, we're going to need pipelines, Pat. We're going to need the pipelines to get the energy to the markets where it's needed. As you know, President Obama has held up something called the Keystone Pipeline now for 7 years, but there are maybe as many as a dozen other pipelines that need to be built. Now, that's not going to cost the taxpayer a penny. Private sector will build it as long as we get the permits that allow the pipelines to be built. Roads and bridges do need to be repaired, but we need to basically get the money to the states so they can spend it on the highest priority projects.
Well, the idea from that, say, $3 trillion, and you take 10% of that, $300 billion, and you use that money for infrastructure. Is that the plan? I mean,
possibly. Yeah. Possibly. That's what. And you know, if you have a plan like that, Pat, where you're doing one of the biggest business tax cuts ever, and look, if businesses pay less taxes and they have more money in the bank, what are they going to do? They're going to hire more workers. They're going to pay their workers more. So it's going to benefit the workers. And then you add to that, you know, some infrastructure spending that will add additional employment. If you're a Democrat, how do you vote against that?
Well, they like it. Well, Mnuchin, by the way, has he had that Indy Mac deal that he made a fortune on, but they'll scream and fulminate, but they can't stop him in the Senate, can they?
No, I mean, he will be confirmed. And look, I think I'm excited, Pat. You can tell I'm in an ebullient mood today, because I'm looking at these great people that that Donald Trump is putting in these positions, you know, it's going to be a real revolution. I'm going to make the case to you, Pat, that if things continue down this course and Donald Trump does the things that he's promised he's going to do, this could be as conservative an administration as Ronald Reagan's. And certainly with respect to the people that are being put in place, the personnel are fantastic. So I think if you're a conservative and you wanted conservative reform, you have to love the way things are going. One other quick point, Pat. I don't know if you noticed what happened with the consumer confidence numbers that just came out a couple of days ago. The biggest increase in consumer confidence this month in 20 years. 20 years. People are really feeling confident and optimistic about the future of this country.
Well, the stock market is that way. Well,
you got it.
The picks, I tell you, have been brilliant as far as I can tell. Yeah. It looks like Trump has a deft hand. I mean, he's got somebody that was a Sikh, you know, background in at one position. He's got somebody else who's an African-American. He's got a wonderful blending, women, men, their skill sets, and then he's got somebody like Wilbur Ross, who is a genius in turning around steel companies. He picked up all those failing steel companies and sold it to ArcelorMittal, the Indian company. It was brilliant. I mean, the guy's smart.
He is, and you know, I've made the case that if Donald Trump is going to be successful and be reelected in 2020, he's going to have to deliver the jobs and the economic development for those areas in the Midwest, like Michigan, Ohio, Pennsylvania, Iowa, Wisconsin, states that for the first time in a long time voted Republican because those workers are really hurting. We have to make a priority bringing the jobs back. That's why I love the Carrier story that you reported on this morning, Pat. Already, he's not even in office yet, and already he saved 1,000 jobs.
Well, one last thing, you impressing upon him, and he needs to get impressed. The Democrats are going to come and say, be reasonable, Donald. Be reasonable. Don't be an extremist. We want to make peace, and you just come along with us. That's a siren song that'll destroy him, isn't it?
I've seen it too many times where, you know, people come, what's the old saying, people come to drain the swamp and then they jump in, they discover it's a hot tub. I don't think that's going to happen with Donald Trump. I think he really is serious about downsizing the bureaucracy, taking the power out of Washington, because this town is booming right now. And no city in America has been booming more than Washington under Barack Obama. Take the power and money out of Washington and get it back to the states and localities that need it for the jobs that haven't been, you know, the average worker in the last 15 years hasn't had a pay raise. It's about time they got one.
Well, I'm for it. Steve, thank you so much for being with us. Stephen Moore, ladies and gentlemen, and we have nothing but the highest hopes for this administration. And so far, Trump is making some extraordinarily wise moves. He's having a little bit of trouble with the Secretary of State. We're not quite sure where that's going to go, but in any event, they have in the Republican Party what is known in football as a deep bench. They have many, many capable players, many capable governors, many capable congressmen, many capable senators, and many capable businessmen. And so when you enlist the aid of all those people, put them together, you get a winning team, and that's what we're going to see. Well, in other news, the massive wildfire in eastern Tennessee has devastated the cities of Gatlinburg and Pigeon Forge, the beautiful resort area. At least 7 people are dead in what's being called the area's worst disaster in 100 years. But this small community is coming together, as Caitlin Burke reports from Gatlinburg.
Smoke can still be seen hovering over the Great Smoky Mountains, a sign, according to fire officials, of the danger that lingers. You can see the smoke coming up behind me from that charred area of mountain. One of the big concerns now, after a day full of rain on Wednesday, is that the rain didn't go deep enough, that there are still these hot spots, like the one you see behind me, that the rain didn't touch, and those fires could pop back up given the right conditions.
This morning, we've still got over 200 firefighters, boots on the ground this morning, that are out working. They're either fighting fires, they're driving through areas doing reconnaissance, they're doing search, and we're still working. We plan to still be working for quite some time.
Many of the firefighters working to make these mountains safe again also call them home.
They've not wavered. Even the ones that's lost everything and lost their home and everything else, they've not asked to be off. They've been here and working.
It's hard to find a member of this community not affected in some way by these fires. That's not stopping them, however, from showing up and pitching in any way that they can. We met these nurses at the Rocky Top shelter, volunteering even after working long shifts of their own.
It's hard, but we're strong people. It's in our DNA. We're strong, we're tough, we're country, and we stick together, and we'll get through it.
Senior Chaplain Paul Lambert of the Sevier County Fire Department says that he's faced disasters before, but never so close to home. Still, he spent the last 3 days on the front lines offering support and even driving the water truck to firefighters up in the mountains.
Just keep praying for us. We're a big faith-based community. We love the Lord, and we just want everybody to keep praying and continue thoughts and prayers for this community as we rebuild.
Meanwhile, the local church is actively supporting not only its members impacted by the fires, but the entire community. Pastor Brent Freeman has been meeting with city leaders, business owners, and influential community members to come up with a plan to care for the displaced.
We've identified the Gatlinburg Foundation Relief Fund, and I know it's weird going to a bank website for that, but smartbank.com, easy website to remember. The very top of their homepage is a relief fund, and 100% of those proceeds are going right to the town of Gatlinburg, and they're going to take it right to the people that need it the most.
Pastor Brent shared with us what he plans to remind his church of this week in the wake of what many of them have been through.
My job is to make sure our people understand that, hey, God's not mad at us. It's not like he doesn't love us, but life happens. You never know when a storm is coming your way. Are you prepared?
An important message from the Red Cross. They're asking people to hold off on sending more stuff. As you can see behind me, they've got plenty of water bottles. They've got plenty of donations coming in. And right now, honestly, they're just running out of places to put everything. This is a small community, and they just need to take a moment and assess where everything needs to go. For CBN News, reporting in Gatlinburg, Tennessee, I'm Caitlin Burke.
Again, my heart goes out to those people. It's a beautiful part of the country. Gatlinburg, Pigeon Forge is just an ideal spot, and they're talking about arson. They're not sure exactly, but there's some suspicion of arson, that some awful, evil person set fire to those beautiful mountains. And they say the wind was almost at hurricane level at some places, up to 85 miles an hour. And of course, whipping the blaze has just been horrible. So we'll pray for them, and I'm so glad that they've got enough supplies to take care of them. But they need the anointing of the Lord, and they need some heavy rain to put those fires out. And the Lord can send that.